In 1873, a ship dragged something up from the bottom of the Pacific. 2 teeth, enormous, each one the size of a grown man's hand. Standard find. Crews log them, scientists date them, the world moves on. But a researcher who examined those teeth decades later made a calculation that has never been satisfactorily explained. The chemical crust on their surface, the kind that accumulates on anything resting on the ocean floor, was too thin, by a margin that wasn't close. Those teeth had not been sitting there for millions of years. They were thousands of years old, at most. What you are about to hear is not a conspiracy theory. It is a documented anomaly, one that the scientific establishment acknowledged and then quietly stopped talking about. This is the story of the creature that ruled every ocean on Earth for 20 million years, and the evidence that suggests we may have been wrong about when it stopped. Before the evidence, you need the context, because nothing about this animal is intuitive. Its scientific name is Otodus megalodon, translated literally, big tooth. That is perhaps the most inadequate name in the history of taxonomy. Current research places its maximum length at somewhere between 15 and 24 meters. The upper estimate, published in 2025, would make it longer than a semi-trailer truck, heavier than a dozen African elephants combined. A great white shark, the animal that has defined human fear of the ocean for half a century, reaches 6 meters on a good day. The creature we are discussing consumed animals that size as a warm-up. Its bite force has been calculated at 40,000 pounds per square inch. For reference, the T-Rex, the most famous land predator in history, managed 12,700. This thing bit 3 times harder than the tyrant lizard king. 276 teeth, 6 rows deep, each one up to 7 inches long, serrated along both edges, built not to cut, but to anchor, to grip a whale and hold while the prey thrashed itself to exhaustion. Its preferred targets were not fish. They were full-grown sperm whales, creatures 18 meters long, weighing 50 tons, the apex predators of their own food chain. To this animal, they were lunch. For 20 million years, it held absolute dominion over every ocean on Earth. Nothing competed with it, nothing threatened it, nothing even came close. And then, 3.6 million years ago, the fossil record goes silent. Gone. That is what we were told. The accepted explanation for its disappearance runs like this. Around 3.5 million years ago, Earth's climate shifted. Temperatures dropped. The warm, shallow coastal waters, where this predator did most of its hunting, began contracting. Simultaneously, prey was changing. Whales grew larger, faster, and started migrating into colder, deeper water, beyond the thermal range where the predator could effectively operate. Orcas were evolving, smarter, more coordinated, willing to hunt in packs, to target calves, to outmaneuver a beast that relied on raw size and ambush. The ecological throne was being contested from every direction at once. And the predator had a fatal weakness, its metabolism. Scientists estimate it required close to 100,000 calories every single day just to sustain itself. That is not a figure with any margin for error. When prey becomes scarce, an animal that size doesn't slow down, it collapses. The theory is coherent, the logic holds, and for most of the scientific community, the case is closed, except for one thing. We have never found a skeleton, not one. A shark's body is built almost entirely from cartilage, the same flexible material in your ears and nose. Cartilage does not mineralize, it does not fossilize. When a shark dies, its body dissolves, it returns to the water as if it was never there. Every reconstruction, every museum model, every scale comparison and size estimate you have ever seen, all of it is built from teeth. Teeth alone. We're declaring the definitive extinction of the greatest predator in Earth's history based on the absence of something that would never have been preserved in the first place. And we're doing it while acknowledging that we have explored less than 5% of the world's oceans. 5%. HMS Challenger left Portsmouth, England in December 1872. It was the world's first purpose-built oceanographic research vessel commissioned to map the floor of every major ocean on Earth. 3 years into that voyage, dredging equipment was lowered into the central Pacific near Tahiti. What came back up included 2 teeth, massive, pristine, unmistakably from the same species. The dating at the time used standard geological assessment. The conclusion? Approximately 2 million years old, consistent with the extinction timeline. Filed, forgotten. Then, in the 1950s, an oceanographer named W.J. Chernetsky went back to those original specimens. He measured the manganese dioxide crust, the chemical layer that accumulates on any hard object resting on the deep ocean floor. The rate of accumulation is well documented. It works like geological clockwork, like rings in a tree, but measured in microns per millennium. His calculation came back with 2 numbers. The first tooth, 24,000 years old. The second, approximately 11,000. 11,000 years ago. To put that in human terms, 11,000 years ago, our ancestors were building the first permanent settlements, planting the first crops, domesticating the first animals, painting the walls of caves that tourists visit today. Civilization was beginning, and somewhere in the Pacific, according to these measurements, the predator was still hunting. The scientific establishment responded as institutions typically do when inconvenient data surfaces. The methodology was questioned, the accumulation rate assumptions were challenged, alternative explanations were proposed, that manganese crust in deep Pacific sediment builds at irregular rates depending on local chemical conditions, and that the crust on these particular teeth may have formed anomalously fast. Those are legitimate scientific objections. They have not been disproven. But here is what is also true. The original specimens still exist. They are held at the Natural History Museum in London. The dating has never been formally re-examined with modern instrumentation, and the question Chernetsky raised has never been officially answered. It was simply set aside. Those teeth came from the deep Pacific, and the deep Pacific has a history of producing things that were not supposed to exist. Consider what we have discovered in the last 50 years alone. The colossal squid, a predator reaching 14 meters with eyes the size of footballs, was classified as mythological until a live specimen was captured in 1981. Before that, it existed only in sailor stories and in the stomach contents of sperm whales. The megamouth shark, a species over 5 meters long, filter feeding in the deep ocean, was entirely unknown to science until 1976, an animal the size of a pickup truck living in water we had been studying for a century, and we had no idea it was there. These are not ancient history. These are discoveries made within living memory. And in 1997, NOAA hydrophones monitoring the Pacific for submarine activity detected something else entirely. An ultra-low frequency sound, powerful enough to be picked up simultaneously by sensors positioned 5,000 kilometers apart. The acoustic signature of something enormous, far larger than any known species, moving through the deep water column. They called it the bloop. The official explanation, revised years later, Antarctic ice fracture, a massive calving event producing a sound pattern consistent with certain biological signatures. But the original analysis flagged it differently. The waveform bore the hallmarks of a biological source, something alive, something generating sound through movement and pressure, not geological fracture. No living organism has ever been identified as its origin. The bloop came from the same ocean that held those teeth, the same depth range, the same acoustic profile as an animal displacing enormous volumes of water. We are not drawing a conclusion. The data does not permit one, but we are asking the question that the data demands. If the deep ocean can hide a 14-meter squid for all of recorded human history, what else is down there that we have simply not found yet? Here is the honest accounting of what we know. The predator almost certainly vanished millions of years ago. The ecology collapsed. The prey migrated beyond reach. The caloric demand could not be met. The animal did not adapt fast enough, and the absence of its teeth from younger sediment layers is real and significant. That is the most rational reading of the available evidence. But the HMS Challenger specimens sit in a museum in London with a dating anomaly that has never been resolved. But the deep ocean, 95% of it, remains entirely beyond our instruments and our eyes. But we have spent the last century discovering that the boundary between known and unknown is far more porous than any textbook suggests. Science does not deal in certainty. It deals with the best available explanation, held provisionally, updated when new evidence demands it. The extinction of this predator has been treated as settled fact for a century, but settled facts have a complicated history in oceanography. 11,000 years ago, something left 2 teeth on the floor of the Pacific. We found them. We dated them. And then, very quietly, we stopped asking why the numbers were wrong. Somewhere below the surface of an ocean that has swallowed entire ecosystems without a trace, in water so cold and so dark that pressure alone would kill us before we reach the bottom, the answer is still down there. We just haven't gone back for it.